Aria was sitting on her couch, scrolling through her phone when she received a text from an unknown number. "I've been watching you," the message read. Aria was creeped out. She tried to ignore the text, but the sender kept sending more and more messages, each one more disturbing than the last. "You can't escape me," another message said. Aria was terrified. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't call the police because she didn't have any evidence, and she didn't want to involve her friends and family because she didn't want to put them in danger. As the days passed, the messages became increasingly threatening, and Aria started to feel like she was losing her mind. She couldn't focus on anything except for the texts, which seemed to be controlling her every move. One day, Aria received a message that said, "Meet me at midnight, or I'll make sure you regret it." Aria was scared, but she knew she had to do something. She decided to go to the meeting place, which was a deserted alleyway in the city. When she arrived, she saw a shadowy figure standing at the end of the alleyway. "Who are you?" Aria asked, her voice shaking. "I'm the devil," the figure replied. Aria couldn't believe what she was hearing. She started to run, but the figure chased after her. She tried to call for help, but her phone was dead. She realized that the text messages had drained her phone's battery. As she ran, Aria heard the figure laughing maniacally. She didn't know what to do. She was trapped and alone, with no way out. Just when Aria thought it was all over, she woke up in her bed, drenched in sweat. It had all been a dream. She picked up her phone, which was fully charged, and saw that there were no new messages. Relieved, Aria let out a deep breath. But as she started to relax, her phone vibrated, and a new message appeared on the screen. "Sweet dreams," the message read. John had always been fascinated by the paranormal. As a tech enthusiast, he often tinkered with his gadgets to try and communicate with the afterlife. One day, while playing around with his phone, he stumbled upon a strange signal that seemed to be coming from the other side. At first, he thought it was just a glitch or interference, but as he listened closer, he realized that it was a call for help. A voice, soft and distant, begged for assistance, pleading to be saved from a dark and foreboding realm. John was determined to help the trapped spirit, and he began to investigate. He discovered that the signal was emanating from an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, a place known for its dark history and supernatural activity. As John entered the warehouse, he could feel a presence, a cold and eerie feeling that made his skin crawl. He followed the signal, winding his way through the maze of corridors, and he finally found the source. It was a room barren and decrepit, with a single phone lying on the floor. The phone was ancient, a relic from a bygone era, but it was still receiving the strange signal. John picked up the phone, and as he did, he felt a chill run down his spine. The voice on the other end was more clear now, more desperate. It was the voice of a young woman trapped in a limbo between life and death, pleading for salvation. John knew that he had to act fast. He began to search the warehouse, looking for any clues as to who the woman was and how she had become trapped in this netherworld. As he searched, he found a diary filled with the woman's thoughts and fears. She had been a victim of a terrible crime, one that had left her soul trapped in this place. John knew that he had to set her free, to break the chains that bound her to this realm. He began to recite a prayer, one that he had learned from an old book on the occult. As he spoke, he felt a surge of energy, a power that flowed through him and into the phone. The signal grew stronger, and the woman's voice grew louder. Finally, with a burst of light and energy, the phone shattered, and the woman was set free. John watched in awe as the spirit rose, ascending into the heavens, and he knew that he had done something incredible. As he left the warehouse, John felt a sense of accomplishment, a feeling of fulfillment that he had never experienced before. He had helped a spirit in need, and in doing so, he had overcome his own fears and doubts. The experience had changed him, and he knew that he would never be the same again. It was supposed to be a fun weekend getaway for 5 friends, but things quickly turned sour when they got lost in the dense forest. They had been hiking for hours, trying to find their way back to the campsite, but every trail they took seemed to lead them deeper into the woods. As the sun began to set, the group realized that they had no choice but to call for help. They huddled together, phones in hand, as they dialed for rescue. But each call went straight to voicemail, and their messages were never returned. Just as they were about to give up hope, one of the phones rang. It was an unknown number, but they answered anyway. A voice on the other end of the line said, "I can help you." Relieved, the group asked the caller for directions, but the voice only gave vague instructions. They followed them anyway, hoping it would lead them to safety. But as they walked, the group began to feel uneasy. The trees around them seemed to be closing in, and the air grew colder. The voice on the phone became more insistent, urging them to keep moving forward. Suddenly, they heard a rustling in the bushes ahead of them. They froze, unsure of what to do next. The voice on the phone told them to stay calm and keep walking, but they knew something was wrong. As they turned a corner, they saw something that made their blood run cold. Standing in front of them was a figure with glowing eyes, its face obscured by the shadows. The group screamed and ran in the opposite direction, but the voice on the phone urged them to keep moving forward. They soon realized that the voice was not human. It was a being that had been living in the forest for centuries, luring unsuspecting victims into its trap. It had been using their phones to manipulate them, to make them believe they were safe when they were actually in danger. The group tried to fight back, but the creature was too powerful. One by one, they fell, until only one was left. She managed to break free and escape, but she knew that the creature was still out there, waiting for its next victim. As she stumbled back to civilization, the survivor realized that she already hears the sounds of passing cars on the highway. At that moment, her phone rang. As soon as Michael received his new phone, he knew that something was off about it. The device was sleek and modern, but whenever he held it, it felt cold and heavy in his hand, as if it was carrying a weight that he couldn't see. On the first night, Michael was startled by the sudden sound of his phone ringing. He glanced at the screen, but the number was unknown. When he answered, all he could hear was static. He assumed it was a wrong number and went back to bed. But the calls kept coming, each one from a different unknown number. Sometimes he could hear faint whispers or eerie breathing on the other end. Michael tried to ignore them, but the calls became more frequent and the messages stranger. One night, while scrolling through his phone, Michael noticed a new app had installed itself without his permission. It was called Unknown Contact, and it had no icon or description. When he opened it, all he could see was a blank screen with a flashing cursor. That's when things took a turn for the worse. Every time Michael received a call or message from an unknown number, a new message appeared in the app. They were cryptic and unsettling, as if they were written by someone who was not quite human. As the days passed, Michael's anxiety grew. He tried to delete the app, but it wouldn't budge. He went to the phone store, but they couldn't help him either. The app seemed to have a life of its own. One day, Michael received a message that read, "The only way to get rid of me is to play my game." He didn't know what to make of it, but he knew he had no choice. He opened the app and typed in yes. Suddenly, the screen went black and the phone started to vibrate violently. Michael tried to turn it off, but it wouldn't respond. He felt like he was being sucked into the phone, pulled into a world he couldn't understand. When he opened his eyes, Michael found himself in a dark and musty room. The air was thick with a foul odor, and the only sound was the faint dripping of water. He realized with a jolt that he was not alone. A figure appeared in front of him, a ghastly creature with long, sharp claws and glowing red eyes. It was the source of the calls and messages, and it wanted something from him. Michael knew he had to get out of there, but the creature blocked his path. He tried to run, but it was too fast. He tried to fight, but his fists went right through it. Just as he was about to give up hope, Michael remembered something his grandmother had told him when he was a child. Sometimes the only way to defeat a demon is to make it face its own reflection. He took out his phone and opened the camera app. When the creature appeared, Michael held up his phone and snapped a photo. The creature shrieked and vanished into thin air. When Michael returned to the real world, he found that the app had disappeared. He never received any more strange calls or messages. But sometimes when he looked at his phone, he could still feel a chill run down his spine. He knew that whatever he had encountered that day was not of this world, and it was something he would never forget.